so we're recording.
Good evening, everybody. We will call the October 24th meeting of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee to order at 7:01. And we'll start over here with our introductions.
Bob Burns.
Sean Datchler.
Brian Burke.
Brian Watt.
Mike Mitchell.
Joyce Gifford. Lisa Normand.
And Scott Archer, staff.
Okay, move on to approval of minutes. Everybody had a chance to review the minutes from last meeting?
Hi, I need to let you know I made there was one correction. You've got a written paper copy, which is the accurate version of those, so you'll actually be adopting that. It was in section, whatever the section is on the RV park, there was one slight wording change, just kind of an editorial thing on Sean Datchler's comment. So what you have on your screen versus what you have on the paper is slightly different, so you're going to be adopting the revised version, unless you have any concerns about that. It's just a really minor wording issues.
Okay. Are there any revisions or corrections?
I move to approve the minutes as amended.
A second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Minutes are approved. We got a big crowd tonight, and I know there are 3 presentations on our agenda, but is there anyone here, any members of the public wishing to make a comment before the group, other than the 3 groups that are making the presentations? Doesn't look like it. Okay, so we'll move on to presentations, and for the committee members, there is now an item C on that, and that is a presentation from Britt Tucker in the high school construction class. That'll be number 3. But we'll start out with A, which is a library building project update, and we'll hear from Maureen Cole and Don Wright.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming.
Good evening, everybody. So I'm the library director. This is Dawn. And we wanted to just touch base with you. And as you know, we're going to have a building project, as indicated by these images. And you probably, are you guys pretty informed about what is going on with that? Or yes?
Say we try to be.
Okay. Okay. So, the site was designated on June 19th as the expansion for the library. And what we've been doing since then is doing studies and getting information to refine our budget. And on November the 12th, I think that's the right date, we'll be bringing that information back to the City Commission just in a work session and just saying that these would be the next steps. And the next step would be sending out an RFP for an architect. As long as there's no huge red flags, and the studies have not brought back any huge red flags or differences in budget than what we expected in the beginning. So that's all great so far. Yeah. But so, what we're going to be impacting the park because we're going to be building in the park. And the most popular image over there seems to be the 2-story image. I know that's the image that the City Commission liked the most. And one reason is that it leaves more park space available. It takes up, if you're probably very familiar with the Carnegie Park, but it can fit between the sidewalks that veer out this way in the back. So it doesn't impact the play park, and it leaves a lot of space on the 7th Street side for green, grassy, open area. And so that's that's the image that they like the best. The other image that tends to be popular with people is the one with the green roof, because then it's just like the park lifted up off the ground. If you can you see that?
Yeah.
That's the middle one?
No, it's the one by Scott. Scott, can you point to that?
There's like a tunnel to Mike's drive-in, I think.
That'd be cool.
That'd be very, very cool, yeah. I think we could work that out, yeah. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Awesome.
That's one very cool aspect of that, but the thing that other people don't like about this is that it doesn't seem to fit with the existing building at all. It's so very modern that it doesn't seem to fit, which is one reason why people like the 2-story image, because it picks up some architectural features of the old building without duplicating the old building. Since it's a historical building, and you know we've applied for the National Historic Designation for that, and that's on its way to being approved, but is also already locally designated. We have to take care when we build and add on to it that it doesn't look identical to the original building, that it can.
That's part of the regulations of the historic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't make it look exactly like the old one.
It needs to be so that people are very clear on what is the historic building.
Differentiate.
Yeah, differentiate, exactly. But you can pick up some features, some architectural features, to make it look like they at least kind of belong together. So, so anyway, we will have a bond measure on the May ballot, more than likely, to get about $6 million, $5–6 million, but we don't plan on raising taxes. We're planning on paying for that out of our regular district income that we have. So that's just to approve the borrowing by the city, because that's what the City of Oregon City Charter says that we have to do. So that'll be coming up in May, and we're hoping that if we can get a design, an architect on board relatively soon after we go through the work session with the commission, that we can actually start some design work and potentially even break ground before next fall. But there's like a ton of hurdles to jump over before then. Like, you know, the planning process with the historic building, it's going to take a while. So our ducks are really going to have to be lined up in a row. But anyway, we just wanted to reach out to you guys, make sure that you're in the loop, let you know that we're taking every care we can to impact the park part as little as possible, and you know, maintain the grounds as much as possible, replace whatever we have to, what has to come out. So we're trying to be very, very good stewards of that park, because that's one of the reasons it's such a great setting for the library, is because the park is so gorgeous and everybody loves using that park so much. So we don't want to take away from that, or as little as possible. So I'm available to talk anytime about any concerns that you have. I can be reached at the library or in a meeting, in lots of meetings. But do you have any questions that I can answer right now for you?
I saw a notice about a parking lot that had been purchased,
Yeah.
but I didn't pay enough attention to
me show you where that
exactly where it is.
Yeah, Don can.
My area of
Don
expertise.
is my Vanna.
Would you like to buy a parking lot with a P? Okay, so this is the current. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to like.
For everybody here. Okay, the current Carnegie is here, that little side door that actually was built from the original architect 100 years ago. That's where the extension was supposed to be for the expansion of the Carnegie, that little door that's off of the fireplace there. But anyhow, up here is Jefferson, okay? And right at the corner of Jefferson is some doctor's offices and whatnot, and there's a parking lot there.
Right.
And it's just pretty much invisible because you just drive by it. Well, they went out for sale, and it's got 20-some lots, 20-some stalls,
Right.
and so we bought it. And so that's going to be, at least it'll get the library staff off of the street around here and up there, if that's what it is. And maybe some of these businesses also will park there, so that we can then figure out how to get some more parking space around it.
Just so I'm sure. So if you were sitting at one of the concerts, it's right behind you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
7th and Jefferson.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
on the corner. It looks like it belongs to the offices up there.
Yeah.
There's
It's
a dentist.
elevated.
There,
It's
yeah,
elevated
it's
off
elevated.
street level.
Exactly. It looks like it belongs to the dentist office that moved in H&R Block, but it's actually a separate lot. So some planner many, many, many years ago made a really bad decision and like split that. But so we bought it because it's about 20 spaces, and we can at least, if nothing else, move staff off the street and open up those spaces for patrons. And then hopefully work a little bit on making some more spaces on the street in addition to that.
Maureen, one thing that you mentioned when I heard you at our neighborhood association that this group
Yeah,
might be
people
interested
remember
in.
things like that, darn it.
This group might be interested in. Can you explain the way that they're proposing, the architect's proposing to change the grade in the park leading up to the front?
Oh, yeah. So, the entrance.
Get back over there, Vanna.
The entrance right now is, obviously, we've got many, many stairs.
Probably this one.
Yeah. And you know, Carnegie's were built to be elevated to higher knowledge, right, Joyce?
Right.
Which is a very nice feature. Unfortunately, it doesn't really meet modern standards for ADA and kind of the way we like to have universal access at like a main entrance like that. So what these guys are proposing to do, and this was just, you know, an idea they had. They're not the architects for the project. They could be, but they're not. They just created these images for us to see. But their idea was to ramp up the grounds here so that it was a natural incline on both sides, and you would, you know, you would end up level at the top of where the stairs are now. So it would change the entrance a little bit, and it would change the landscaping out in front of the library. It would have a little bit more elevation.
Thanks.
Some of us are noticing those steps in our later years.
Yeah.
It's about time for a ramp, I think.
Yeah. Well, and we have a ramp into the building, but you know, it goes into the
Yeah.
basement, and then you have to go through the
Right.
children's room to get to the elevator, and that's not really very good access for somebody who really needs, I mean, then you have to wind your way through bookcases, and I think we can do better than that. And we're not sure that we're going to have two entrances, but we might. So it makes sense, now that we have the parking lot up on Jefferson, to have an entrance on Jefferson as well. And so I think that, you know, we've kind of worked that into our estimate for the revised estimate, because it just makes sense to have something up there. And we're used to two entrances, so that shouldn't throw us that much, staffing-wise. And I think it would be way more convenient, because, you know, parking up on Jefferson and then walking all the way around to the front, and it's raining and you've got 3 kids, that's when people get unhappy. Yeah.
So, Maureen, so the Jefferson entrance, because, you know, it's on that hill, that's going to be at ground level. So why do we have to have both entrances at ground level?
And we might not in the long run. You know, when they did this, they had not conceived of an entrance at Jefferson.
Okay.
And, you know, it's not definite that we have one, but it makes sense to look at that. You know what I mean? I think it would make a lot of sense to have an entrance there. So that's just something I kind of threw out in the last few weeks after we got the parking lot, or since we knew we were going to get it. So it, you know, it might be possible, but this door here, I think, is going to always look like the front door. So we'll be working on that. I know. I can see your hopeful little look. I know.
I know.
Joyce likes the Carnegie idea of the stairs and the elevation to higher knowledge and all that. Yeah.
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 I mean, Carnegie insisted on it in all the plans.
Yeah.
So.
Any other questions for tonight? Yes.
You mentioned a little bit about the funding. You said there would probably be, or likely be, an election in May,
Right.
but there wouldn't be any
Tax increase.
tax increase.
Right.
I'd like to, can you,
Explore that a little bit.
yeah.
So the building should cost altogether, everything, about $10 million. That includes a lot of contingency right now, but you know how that goes in building projects. You need to have that. So right now, we have almost $3 million saved, and the county owes us $1 million, which was the whole district arrangement in 2008, because they're getting out of the library business. So as soon as we have a project, and now we do, I can like write to them and ask for that money. So we'll have about $4 million. And that means we need to borrow about $6 million. And the service, the debt service on $6 million, I believe, and according to my finance director, that we can afford to pay for that out of the money that we already have coming into us in district and city funds. So we get, a bunch of money from the library district every year, and then we get $200,000 annually from the city in capital money, and that we would put towards the debt service. And that if we did that, then we wouldn't have to raise any more money to cover that debt. And so that's the plan. And I know people don't like the government to take on debt, but we do have an income source that we can pay for it. And at least then we're not raising taxes or using urban renewal money or some of those other schemes that other cities nearby have
It's a
tried.
voter-approved revenue source. The voters approved this revenue to spend it for libraries,
Right.
and now we're using it for libraries, so.
It'll be on the measure in May then. If it
Yes.
is.
That's the plan,
That's
yeah.
the plan.
That will be on the measure.
And we need to be careful in how we phrase it so people understand that we're asking them to approve the debt but not a new tax.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. No other questions?
Any other questions for Maureen or Don?
Sure. Are any of those images available online for people to see?
Yes, they're at the library website.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Anything else?
Great.
right.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
having me.
Thank you.
Looks like a great project.
Thank you.
And a long time coming, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Natural Resources,
Leave it? Yeah.
Natural Resources Committee.
Hello, I'm Brian Boyce, Chair of the Natural Resources Committee here in town. And I think some of you have heard this before, but our bylaws actually say we're supposed to meet with you guys once a year or more. And of course, it's not in your bylaws, but it is in ours, so here we are. And our subject matter is a little different from yours. We don't talk too much about buildings themselves, but more about the natural resources that are in parks and other locations in town. Some of the jobs we've been doing is updating the street tree list for the city, our own bylaws, and the rules around heritage trees. And we also work on recommending to the council whether or not heritage tree applications go forward. And there's a little history on that one with the Heritage Grove at Waterboard Park, as you guys are all aware of, I'm sure. And so we're dealing more about, what is the natural resources we can shepherd within the city and preserve and enhance and improve, rather than, how are we going to develop the parks and things like that. But there's quite a bit of overlap because as park people, you have to be interested in the natural resources within the parks. And of course, we are also concerned with them outside of the parks. But there should be, I would anticipate sometimes when we could interact and act in a more unified, share ideas and act in a more unified manner when that opportunity presents itself. So I was just wanting to throw that open for discussion and see what you guys think and if you have any issues like that at the present time or not. So.
Any comments?
Are there any more applications for heritage trees? I know that how many have you had, and are there any pending?
It's only been 3 or 4. One was turned down because it didn't quite meet the criteria correctly, and it was more of a neighbor. The person, it was actually in an alleyway, and the person on the adjoining property wanted to take it out, and there was some valid reasons for that. The neighbor wanted to stop that by having it declared a heritage tree, and that one was turned down. There's a large oak, there's, I believe there's a large ponderosa, as well as the heritage stand at which encompasses Waterboard Park. And I believe those are the only 3, if I remember right, at the moment. And so it's an interesting process. We've made it more consistent and streamlined it a bit from what it was originally. For instance, it didn't mention the native dogwood as a desirable native tree. Most of the other native larger trees were listed before we got started. And of course, that's been added in because it's one of the more desirable, one of the most ornamental native trees we've got. And so that's, example of the changes we made, as well as streamlining things and so on. So one thing I did want to point out that you may not be completely aware of yet, but you will be soon if you don't hear about it here, is I became interested in Waterboard Park because I go there frequently, and contacted Metro about a grant to remove ivy and other plants and rehabilitate the park to a great extent. And they indicated that they're quite interested in that. But they wanted me to join up with the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council, who already has several proposed park work projects in separate parks through Oregon City. wanted us to combine forces, which we've agreed to do at this point in time. And Metro is being quite supportive of anti-invasive work and other park enhancements. And the exact shape and size of these projects are yet to be seen, but Water Board itself has somewhere upwards of 10 acres of ivy that needs to be removed. It might be closer to 20. It's practically the whole park. Some of it's just too steep to deal with, and nobody ever goes there, and it may be abandoned for that reason. Subsequent to that, I discovered a rather rare plant within Waterboard Park, which 95% of its habitat is overtaken by ivy at this point in time. And it's a plant that grows in accumulated organic material between boulders of rock slides. And there's found a single plant, and it's only been found in the Portland area maybe 5 times. It's one of these plants that's worldwide distribution, but you never see very many at one time. I found it once at the entrance to a lava tube up near St. Helens, and that was the only other time I found it outside of people's gardens. Rather attractive small fern. There's also oak fern there, which is not really rare, but it's unusual this low. It does pop up here and there. Up in the Cascades, you can see ground covers that are pretty extensive. So those are both found there, and who knows what else is there. But we know the ivy prevents growth of a couple of ferns, including this rare one, which is the maidenhair spleenwort, which is a real pretty little one. It is in the nursery trade and so on, but we're sort of keeping the location secret because it is, in New York, they put it on the endangered plant list because of collecting. So we're not going to just tell everybody where it is, but it's safe and sound. I walked by it several times over the years without noticing it. Poison oak is hanging over it, and but it's an interesting fact that we've got unusual plants in our parks. So, this project with Metro will include something around that fern. What are we going to do about it? It's there. There's only one. It's a little ways from a potential trail route, and so what do we do with it? That's a big question. And so anyway, this grant will be implemented next year, and it could lead to big changes along with, it would be a combination of contractors and volunteers.
And that's mostly ivy removal?
The ivy and a variety of invasive trees, blackberries, but there isn't very many there.
Is there Scotch broom there?
Tiny amount. It's too shaded for blackberries and Scotch broom for the most part. There's where the big viewpoint at the top is. There's a cleared area below that to allow the view to still be there, and that because of the light that's available there, you will get Scotch broom and blackberries. But it's almost non-existent in that park because of the shade. Neither of those two like that. But there are invasive trees like bird cherry, holly, and hawthorn that take more shade. Hawthorn doesn't like it that well, but those other two do. They really thrive in shade and are a real threat to the natural ecological condition that we've got. So those would be removed, and I'm planning on talking with city parks to get them to do some of the work, as well as especially the normal maintenance stuff that they'd like to do adjacent to roads and things like that, which they're already doing. That would not be much more work, but part of the grant process is to get a one-to-one match with other funds and volunteer work and so on. So any source we can get would be part of the process that we have to figure out. So anyway, that was separate from the NRC itself, but NRC will be supporting that project. So, and
any other questions for Brian?
Okay.
Scott, while Brian is still here, I see down in your reports there's an update on that Heritage Grove application. Would it make sense to jump off the order of the agenda and talk about that now while Brian's still here?
That was just as a follow-up because Prac had discussed that previously, and also because obviously it's at a park that, and Brian kind of touched on that. I was just reporting back to the Parks Committee that the City Commission did approve the heritage tree grove in Waterboard Park at their October 2nd meeting. So that was approved. And that was their first heritage tree approval, I think, that we done.
It
Or
was
we
the
did a
first-
private one in public property, I think,
Yeah,
right?
the first one public and the first one that was a stand
Yeah.
rather than
Just
individual
as
tree.
individual tree. So anyway, that was just a follow-up to let you know that that had been approved by the commission on October 2nd. So.
I believe that both our groups have recommended approval on that one, so got a wish.
Okay, if there isn't anything else, Brian, I want to thank you for coming, and
Yeah.
I think, as you mentioned, our areas of responsibility, if you will, do overlap a little, not necessarily everything, but I think it's
No.
good that you're here, that we talk about it, and because we can now keep in the back of our mind, okay, does this have an impact on natural resources, and should we get the Natural Resource Committee involved, or whatever. So it's just good for us to keep that in mind when we're doing what we do. So we
Yeah.
appreciate you taking the time to.
Yeah, and we'd like to do the same when, things come up within parks, then it'd probably be appropriate to share that with you guys, so.
Right.
Okay?
Good. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to number C, which is Britt Tucker and his large group from the high school. Oh, you two guys, you do the short straw and have to talk?
Thank you.
My name is Josh Smith. I'm actually part of the Oregon City Construction Program.
My name is Lane Warren. I'm also part of that construction program.
And we've actually come today, you guys are getting a handout for it, but we're proposing to build a stage down at the Interpretive Center this year. We've already gone through the museum board, and we've gotten their approval. We have done some changes on there. I don't know if they've taken it out of the pamphlet or not.
Pretty much what we did is they wanted a simpler design. So, they didn't want it to stand out too much out of their place. So pretty much we made it a little bit smaller and took up all the patina that we were planning on putting on it. Took the sides off.
So as you guys can see, you guys have an overhead view of where the stage would be. It's 18 feet wide, 32 feet deep, and it can actually fit on either side of that building right there. The reason we chose the placement of where it is now is because of the fact that that gives us the best overall view. And then also, just so you know, when the stage opens on the back, it's 9 feet tall, and then in the very front of the stage, it would be 12 feet tall.
To the beam on top.
To this top beam, actually, right here.
And actually it's 18 feet deep and 32 feet wide.
I'm sorry, I had the measurements wrong. So you want to go ahead and. So on this right here, these black beams that are going, they're metal. They'll be for the base. It's going to be cement. It'll be bolted down into the cement, and running off these metal poles is going to be it's a glue lam beam. On the exterior plywood that's going around the outside, it's a tongue and groove that we can stain. We've done before on all of our projects. We've had it's like the redwood sort of stain design, and we thought about continuing on with that. If you guys feel that there should be a different color, we're open for our ideas on that. On the ground, it's actually just pressure treated plywood that's going to be painted black because most stage floors are painted black. And then the roof, right now we have it painted as green, but because that is what we've gone with before. However, again, we're open to ideas on colors if you guys are opposed to that green idea.
And also we'll have a couple skylights on top, which you can't really see from here, but there's 3 of them. And they're the white blocks.
Okay.
So do you guys have any sort of questions for us that we may have not touched up on that we can clarify?
Mike just before you before the committee gets into discussion or questions, just want to add from staff, and I know the committee knows well the success and great partnership that we've had with the high school construction group. They've done unbelievable projects for us and have contributed greatly to our park. So this is just yet another, I think, fantastic proposal. And I just want to note to the committee, so you're very aware that, obviously we're in lockstep here with the proposal that this is an amenity at the end of the Oregon Trail site that we very much want. It's not just something that we're just trying to stick in somewhere just because. It's something that we want. So, and they're willing to take this on as their next project for this school year. And I think for those of you that were able to make the big event in July down there this year, the celebration event in late July, or even if you didn't, I know you heard about it. We put in a temporary stage, and that was kind of a test run to see how well received it would be to do concerts there. I think the answer was, yeah, it's a pretty good idea, and this gives us the ability to do things more regularly. And the report you just got from the library about the Carnegie thing, that's going to move our concerts out of Carnegie Park for the most part, and this is probably where we're going to be looking at putting those. So, it's something that we very much need there, and it works well with our plans on the site. So I just want to make sure you knew that, and in addition to what these guys have told you.
Scott, do you know the size of the stage that you had there this summer, just so I can compare it in my mind? Probably it was smaller, though.
It was smaller than this. I don't recall the size, but it was definitely smaller than what we're proposing here.
Because it was small.
It was smallish, yeah. So we definitely would like more room if we're going to build something permanently. So.
Is that getting heavy?
Just wait till we get Elvis laying down.
Bob.
This might be an obvious question, but the location, is it where the 32 is on the white spot? Is that where that's where it's located on the premises, right?
Currently, right now, it is. That's where we've got it because that is the best viewpoint from what we've seen. However, we can flip it to the other side if it makes more sense on the other side of that building right there. But as of right now, that's where we feel it should be placed.
I think you're more centrally located right there.
I believe so. I believe that's what it was also.
That was
because of the existing shelter, which isn't going to go anywhere. It's not as ideal as if the shelter weren't there. We'd locate it more where the shelter's at, but that's probably the better of the two options on that side.
Wasn't it on the other side, the temporary one?
For the event this summer, it was actually more almost in front of the shelter. Yeah, we ended up kind of almost sticking it right in front of the shelter.
And is there any reason why in this location it blocks views from the road or anything? Any concern of that?
I don't think so. I think we've looked at it pretty closely, and I think we're comfortable with that. Yeah, it's the better of the two options on the two sides of the shelter.
What is your foundation? How do you have it set up on your base? Is that a concrete pad?
Yeah, I believe what it is going to be a concrete pad. We're not 100% sure yet. We have not run it through an engineer yet, and they'd have the best answer for that. But what we envision is it will be a concrete pad.
And the roofing material?
The roofing material is going to end up being it's going to be metal. It's going to be metal roofing, and right now it's painted green. But as we stated earlier, we can go to silver or anything that you guys feel would be the best.
I think green would blend in really well.
Yeah.
Because of the height, because of the sloping, pardon me, I know I'm not on a microphone. My preference actually for the floor would be a post and beam thing. Because that's something, thank you, that's something the kids can do rather than pouring a giant, because the slab, it's got to be elevated. So I think what we'll do is we'll have a foundation around it and then a post and beam and then just simple floor joists. And then I think that's the best option as far as my class goes, getting everyone involved. And
yeah, concrete work would be pretty tough there.
well, plus you'd have to raise it. You'd have a lot of fill because it's slow. Well, Yeah, we don't. We've already been down working with one of the local. You were there, weren't you? When you went down and they met a surveyor. He was nice enough to survey it for us for free, and so they went through the whole the surveying points and everything. So we'll have a very precise map about that, but it does slope and so. But I think a post and beam or just a simple floor joist system would be the best. And it's like I said, we had this very elaborate wagon wheels and steer horns, and we thought that, and they really didn't want that. So this is what we came up with, just real simple and to the point, but kind of, you see the pictures, it's fairly, it's nice looking, I think. Very
So,
nice.
I was going to ask Scott, that's not considered floodplain down there anymore?
Well, it is.
It is.
Yeah,
Okay,
it
so
is,
are there any concerns about building
We-
in the floodplain? Or is this an approved project for floodplain building?
We-
It
when
will
we-
be after the engineer's done with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we made sure when we shot the elevations and did all the surveying and all that, we made sure to go through what I believe is considered the floodplain. We made sure to get those elevations too, so that when we do go to the engineer, he has that right in front of him. That way, he can adjust as need be. So it is still considered one. So we made sure to get the numbers for that for the engineer.
So, as we do in some of our parks that are in flood areas, especially at Clackamet, for example, we build our outdoor structures to be able to get wet, and we'll have to take that into consideration with this project. They're working on the kiosk thing down at Clackamet right now. They built it so it could be flooded if that's what happens. So,
Yeah, we're well
If
versed
when
in
that
the floodplain, flood path.
Okay.
I would assume if it's for concerts, you're going to have a lot of high-powered equipment and speakers that people would want to use. Have you taken that into account? And
Yeah, there's actually a power supply place right next to where we would build this. So.
It's close.
Wonderful. Well, I can just tell you guys that I look out my window at the Wesley Lynn project basically all day, every day when I'm home, and your predecessors have done outstanding work, and I have no doubt you guys will as well. But thank you, kind of in advance, because you guys go off to college and might move away, but we look at it every day, and it's really an asset to the city what you guys do. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You have totally changed the look of Wesley Lynn Park. It's just crazy. I go up there and it's awe. That's all you can say. It's like, wow.
Absolutely.
Are you guys still looking for project funding, or do you have it?
We have it.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, he's
Were you a part of that process too? The application for, I'm assuming, a Metro grant?
Yes, there was a couple kids last year that we had come in. It's mostly I'm one of the kids that returned last year, and I was a part of the application process last year when we had to get it in.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us the amount that you received for this project?
I believe it was 12,000.
I think so.
Yeah, I believe it was 12,000 was what we were granted. And I'm not sure. We're not exactly sure how much the project is going to cost, but it really all depends on engineering wise on what they believe is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Is going to be.
Was that what you asked for, or did you get less than what you asked for?
Oh dear.
Is that the wrong question?
Can we
Right.
talk later?
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
Yeah, we can report.
Yeah.
I can report back to you. If you
I
want
just
to do
want
that.
to. I just want to make a comment that when you turn garbage into this, it's pretty awesome. And when you've got, students in high school and a teacher like Britt, I think it's amazing. And to see this happening, and if you don't know what I mean by garbage, 50 cents a ton of garbage at Metro down there at the station on Washington. We get that for the city of Oregon City. I think that's still the case, but I think that's pretty awesome. So good job, guys.
What Brian's talking about, that's the money that comes to the city is through what becomes our Metro Enhancement Fund grants that the City Commission and then the Metro Enhancement Grant Board gets to give out for basically city enhancement and beautification projects. So, yeah.
what are you looking for completion? 100% this year, or is this a multi-year project?
Right now, we're feeling it's 100%. However, it could be a multi-year project.
Guys, you can set that down. You look like Go ahead and set it down.
It could
But
be
you're
a
shooting
multi-year.
for this year.
Our goal would be this year.
Who knows? I've done this enough years. It's like the kiosk. It went on and on and on and on, and we didn't even get started until like
We got started
April.
with April of last year, and
I started it in October.
and we just
So,
now
hopefully-
100% finished it.
Hopefully, we'll be done.
Yeah.
It's not a real big. I mean, it's not a massive project, but actually, the kiosk in some ways, though smaller, was a lot more complicated. It's a pretty complex little project, oddly enough. So, but we'll try real hard. Let's put it that way. I can't. I'm not going to say anything because I have no. I can't. The planning department. I don't know who's going to get
It's when the
involved.
permits come through, that's.
That,
and-
yeah,
and
there-
it's- and that's
the
out of
part,
your
yes.
hands,
No,
right?
that is not in my. That's what I was
Yeah.
getting at. So we'll go as fast as we can, and I want to thank the city for being patient with us because we are a 1 hour at a time. I mean, all that stuff was built an hour at a time, other than the Saturdays and Christmas breaks. And
Trust me,
everything.
we're happy to be patient.
Absolutely.
Not a question.
It's difficult, but you got to remember it's still a class, and we only have X amount of time. So, but we do pretty good. So we do our best.
What you do is amazing, and what you've added to the parks is tremendous. And this is obviously a great project, especially in light of what we know is going to happen, or looks like it's going to happen, to our concert space. Plus, it's one more thing to make what's a little bit of a white elephant, I guess you could say, with that center. The end of the Oregon Trail Center. It's a struggle. So it's anything that can get some more activity going on there and some more use of it. It's great.
That was another thing that we had thought about too, and when we talked with the museum board, is that's why they liked it, is because it would help spur money back into them and help them, start doing better. So that was another reason they really liked it.
Looks great.
So,
Any other- yeah.
just before you wrap this up, typically what we'll do with these types of projects as a committee is looking for kind of a formal stamp of approval. So usually we'll do something you don't have to get overly specific, but because there's some design things and locations to work out and all that stuff. But basically, we'll typically do a motion to basically support the project going forward or something to that effect. Is kind of how we've done that in the past. To just yet put kind of a more formal stamp and say, the Parks and Rec Committee is supportive.
Bob? At the appropriate time, I would like to suggest that we send a letter of appreciation and thanks to the school board, superintendent's office, principal, teacher, and the students by name, whenever that's appropriate. This is an awesome project, and
Thank you.
the whole city is going to appreciate this very, very much.
I appreciate
you.
that. These kids deserve a lot of credit. I mean, this has been going on, and it's fun to watch this year to year. And it's not this is not a simple thing we do. There's a lot of moving parts, but I love to watch these kids grow. It's just fabulous. It's a wonderful platform, and you see it. You know what's going on here. So.
Those letters would then also be given to the kids, right?
Absolutely.
That would be a
Yeah.
great thing
That's
for college.
what I would
Absolutely.
want more than
That would be
anything.
huge.
Yep.
We
And
do
future
letters.
jobs.
They have professional portfolios that they present at the end of the year, and
Good
that
idea.
any letter of recommendation would be wonderful. Especially on the city letterhead, it's a great thing.
Huge.
Gives them a little competitive advantage, and that's what I'm after.
Yeah, definitely.
So, thank you.
So-
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Rick, can you get the names of all the students that were involved in the kiosk project
I can.
to Scott,
It's
and
on
we'll.
it's on our letterhead, and I can give you the. I think we got our did we get our letterhead done this year?
We've got our letterhead
You
from
did
last
that,
year,
didn't
and
you,
we
Dan?
can get the letterhead from this year as well for you guys.
Great.
So the names.
That's a great
change on
idea,
our
Bob.
stationery.
Thank you.
Yeah, great suggestion. I'll help to follow up on that. I think that letter coming from the Parks and Rec Committee would be especially nice, and we can work that out. Just so that the committee knows as well. At the end of the school year every year, the class has I don't know what you call it, a celebration
It's
or
a
something.
celebration.
Gathering.
Yeah, it's
Sort of like the award ceremony for their class at the end of the school year, and actually the last 2 years. They've done it at the new
Wesley
shelter
Lynn.
at Wesley Lynn, which is very appropriate because they built it, and they do stuff. And the city usually has one or a few representatives there. I was at the last one or a couple of them, and sometimes our mayor, often our mayor is there to help pass out the
Actually, the mayor's
appreciation
been there every year
certificates.
for the past 9
So
years.
just letting you know that the city does do some recognition and help, but I think a letter specifically from this committee is a really neat idea. So
And by the way, you're all invited. It'll probably be May 31st this year. I
I'll try to remember to pass that invitation along.
It's a very powerful, I think, very powerful ceremony, and it's really wonderful. So.
Well, I'd make a motion that the Park and Rec Advisory Committee is in full support of the new stage project as submitted.
Second.
Any comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you, guys.
Great, perfect, thank you.
Girls, pardon me. Politically.
She's used to it.
Politically incorrect, I'm sorry.
Everybody stick up their fingers too.
Okay, we'll move on to general business, and the first item is the designated off-leash dog area recommendations,
Me too.
which we burned our way through last week and came up with our recommendations.
Last month.
Yeah, last month, thank you. And to be honest, I've not been in town, so I've not had an opportunity to present that to the city commission yet, but I will. Scott, do you have anything more on that?
I was not at the last meeting here, so I wasn't involved in the specifics of the discussion, though I know that you recommended, it looks like you recommended for the designated off-leash area, kind of the pilot program, the consideration of Barkley Park, Park Place Park, and Wesley Lynn Parks. So I want to make sure that, just to kind of reaffirm that with the committee, that that's correct. And then I believe...
Did we prioritize those?
No, we wanted all three.
Equal weight.
Equal weight, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I needed a little bit of a
different
sense.
parts of the city.
Different parts of the city, right.
Okay. And then I guess there were some questions about process going forward as to how you wanted to take that back to the commission, or to the city commission, which was what you were asked to do, was bring back some recommendations for this. So I'm glad to help move that along in whatever way you'd like to do that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think there were two things that we talked about. One was, should we try to get it to be an agenda item, or would I go and just talk in public comment?
Or a work session.
Or a work session. That was one thing. The other issue had to do with our role as a group in presenting this idea to any of the affected neighborhood associations, either before or after it's presented to the commission.
Good question. Couple different things we could do on taking it back to the commission. What I think might be a nice way to do so is, as you said, just come to a regular meeting under the citizen comments portion. Just say you're reporting back that you've discussed it, and here's the recommendations that we came up with, and that you're ready to give those to the commission at that point. I would think then would probably be looking at having the commission assign it to schedule it on a work session agenda. That's a kind of a work session type of an item that they would spend some, time on working through. How's this going to work? What are we looking at? Because then staff, we would need to come up with some ideas about the logistics of, implementing this program or whatever. And then when that was scheduled, PRAC would be notified so that if any of you that were interested and involved or in being in that conversation could come to that commission meeting as well. So that's the probably, I think, the better way to do it. The other way is I can just simply request this to be on the next available commission work session, and then you just come at that point and present the same thing, basically. But it's kind of your call. And then the neighborhood association thing, we can, I think once we get it scheduled with the commission and that follow-up going, we'd probably want to talk about how to get out there and meet with the neighborhoods.
There were a couple of different points of view, and I'm going to put words in some people's mouths, and if I don't say it right, correct me, but the thought was, should it be presented to the neighborhood associations prior to talking to the commission so that the neighborhood associations aren't blindsided by the idea, versus if we do it that way, are we painting the commission into a corner and getting the cart before the horse and putting some pressure on them in that way? So
I believe that you'd probably want to just take it back to the commission and say, we're kind of reporting back to you, this is what you asked us to do. But you might say that with the suggestion that you've discussed that we should probably share this with the affected neighborhoods. And the timing of doing it on the work session first or after you do the neighborhoods, you could probably have that discussion a little bit with the commission, or they could decide that because it's kind of their call at that point. Yeah. Just my recommendation. You can
sounds reasonable.
It's your recommendation, so you can certainly do what you wish.
I think truly what the commission wanted really was to look at not all the logistical parts of it at this point. I think they were looking for names.
Mm-hmm.
And along with that, I think we do present the names and say we want to be good neighbors as being a park reps, and here's some other things that we think should be considered. But that would all be talked about, I think, in the work session. So I would feel comfortable doing that same, going to them with those recommendations first.
Okay.
That's just, again, my...
I see mostly nodding of heads, so okay.
So if you went to citizen comments first, then that's all on public record, and the citizens would know before the work session. Just to...
True.
Well, I hear you, Joyce, I understand. But in point of fact, it really has been already mentioned in a public session by the mayor, in fact, at a commission meeting, just as the beginning of the idea.
And here. It's a public meeting, by the way.
What?
Yes,
this
that's
is
true.
a public
This is
meeting.
a public meeting.
Yes, it is.
For listening audience.
Right. So it's not going to really come as a total surprise to anybody who's looking, I guess. And I think so. I think the public comment section makes sense first, because that'll give them some time to get their questions in order before it would go to a work session. So I'll look at the schedule and get to it before next meeting. I think I get to stay in town for a while. Any other comments on that? So we'll move on to RV Park Master Plan update.
I'll just give you a little briefing. This is, let's see, at the last meeting, which again I was not there, but I believe that Denise presented you with basically the updated plan that we had, and there was some discussion and some comments from PRAC. Some kind of minor things that we were looking at making some changes to potentially. Those changes have been noted, and we're continuing to work kind of on the just fine-tuning what we had presented to you at the last meeting. The next step would be we're going to begin the process of a master plan is a land use issue. You have to get it formally approved as a land use plan. Even though we don't know when we're going to build it. So we're going to begin the process of working with our planning department on that type of stuff, so that we're getting that. Basically, the idea would be to get the land use stuff done well in advance, so that we have a project that's ready to go. Should we find maybe a grant source or something like that, the more ready a project is to go, shovel ready, the better off you are to get funding. So we're looking at it like that. So, so when we've got the absolute final recommended plan, we'll bring that back to you one more time, just as a here's the kind of the final thing. But I think we were real close at the last one, and just a little bit of kind of minor brushing it up, if you will. So, unless you had any other questions about that process, that's basically where we're at. Just wanted to keep you posted on it.
Anything on that? No? Okay. Move on to Willamette Falls Legacy Project and our amazing tour. That site is incredible.
So at the last meeting, my understanding is that PRAC requested that this be kind of generally a standing item on your future agendas for a while, just to keep your eyes on the process and kind of keep up with what's going on. I know that some of you went on the tour, and then it was also, you received a full presentation back, I think, in July from Christina in our planning department, and there's a lot of public process stuff going on right now. So,
Yeah, they were also at the Elvis concert.
Yep, they were doing an information table there, and there's lots of that kind of stuff going on. So that process continues to move forward. I guess what I'd like to know from you is what you'd like from me as far as, you want me to just to bring back a sort of a general update as to where the process is at monthly, if that's appropriate, or because it was noted that PrAC requested this be a standing item. I don't know, if that was a strong consensus type of a thing, or
I think just keeping us updated. There may be months where there's nothing to report, but just to keep it on our radar. And
I think there were a couple things that, and like, for example, from the last meeting to this meeting, the sale didn't go through. That's a pretty key item to bring up if people don't know. And then the second thing, I think, until we actually adopt some goals, we should kind of kick that idea around some more. We discussed last time about coming up with several goals, eventually adopting those, and then forwarding them on. I think that's something that should be looked at. I know we have a heavy agenda tonight, and maybe it's not the best place, but we could always email a few ideas around before the next meeting. I didn't come up with any of this meeting either. I doubt anybody else has. But
so I'll just keep that on the agenda pretty regularly, and we'll like you just said, Sean. That's a good point. For example, that the developer that was looking at it that had an option on it withdrew their proposal or withdrew their offer. So it's still on the market, and we'll keep you posted as to what's going on with that. So.
Okay. Moving on to PrAC membership and openings, unless a couple of people have changed their mind about reapplying.
Nope. Sorry.
Got to try,
Yeah.
So just to kind of confirm with you, so we've got three. The way it goes is every year, at the end of every year, we have three positions that expire, and this year it's Bob Burns and the two Brians, Brian Burke and Brian Watt. Brian Watt is in his second term, so he's not eligible to apply again. You can sit out a year and then reapply, Brian, of course.
For the right amount of pay, yeah.
Brian Burke is eligible to apply, but I understand you've indicated you're not going to seek a second term. Okay, just want to make sure. And then Bob, we've already got your application. You submitted that. Thank you for that. And the process is, so there's going to basically, assuming that Bob is reappointed, there will be two openings still. We still have those positions advertised, just kind of generally. We have a lot of information out there. Again, word of mouth is great. If you know any folks that are interested and might want to do that, you can encourage them to look at it. The process would be, even though Bob is on the committee right now, the mayor implemented a new procedure over the last couple of years that everybody has to be interviewed, even if you're applying. So we'd have to do a short interview again, Bob, even though you've done that before. So you should be real good at it. So my plan would be that we will schedule interviews. Hopefully, maybe we'll have more than just one applicant. We'll schedule those for the November meeting, and I'll keep you posted. But we typically do those an hour or 30 minutes before the regular meeting, depending on the number of applicants that we have. So.
And the November meeting is scheduled for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Thanksgiving.
We're gonna talk about that.
Later.
Yeah,
Crazy.
You'll need to pick an alternate date tonight. We're gonna work on that. So that's what I understand as of right now. Just kind of keeping you posted. And
So-
if you have any questions,
Was the application deadline has come and gone, but if nobody's applied, it remains open until filled at this point then?
Yeah, the deadline was October 21st, I think, but that's just to encourage people to apply so we can keep the process moving. But if there are still positions open, then we'll keep taking applications for sure.
Okay. And, Scott, as part of that, will we reach out to the Pioneer Center again? try to get a representative.
Yeah, good point. I will do that.
Okay. We'll move on to Park Day event. We talked briefly about this last time, but we wanted to defer it until Lisa could be here since she did such a tremendous job with that event. We thank. No, sir. What? Everybody thought it was great. We could have used more people there, but you know, for a first event, it was great, and I want to thank you for what you did on that. And we'd love to have your comments or anybody else's comments. Do we want to do it again next year? How do we improve it? You know, just. And I'm not. You don't have to give us a big elaborate report, but whatever you care to say.
Well, I definitely think we should do it again next year. I think we're just
Cool.
it's
Hear,
one
hear.
of those things that we just have to. I don't know why my nose is running. I apologize. I think we just have to keep doing it. We'll get people out to the parks. They just have to know that it's there. And I think with continued awareness, and we keep saying we're having it, and they'll be there. It was just low turnout this time.
But a great start.
Yes.
Any other comments?
I would suggest some more signage. And then I think if we reach out to the sports programs here in Oregon City, we can get mass amount of emails out to people and notifications, and things spread fast. So, and I'd be willing to take that on and help you out with that. Sorry, I'm not talking.
Well, that wasn't set. That wasn't pointed towards you. That's not your
So, but I could help out on all that, as far as getting the signs up and everything like that, and getting the word out to the sports groups and getting the emails out, mass emails everywhere. So, be more than happy to do that. I think it's a great thing.
Great.
I guess I do have one comment. You know, I was kind of new to the board when that was getting finalized, and so I missed all the early discussions of the whys and the hows. But honestly, to this day, and I attended it, I don't know what the goal was. And if I don't know it, other people definitely don't know it. So message improvement would be a good thing, because I've sat in plenty of these meetings and just didn't know. Great event. I was glad I was there. There were some neat things going on. But why do people get out of their house and go to it? They've got to have a reason. And hopefully we don't do it on a garage sale weekend.
Bob.
I made the comment last month that perhaps we could have some other event that we could attach it to where there's a natural larger crowd, so that we don't depend totally on people interested in the parks to show up. And I still think that's a good idea. Now, had it not been for the water feature at Rivercrest Park, we wouldn't have had anybody there, which would have been too bad with all the work that went into it. But people showed up and they didn't know what we were doing there. Maybe 5 or 6. But other than that, they didn't. And that's really too bad, because the work that Lisa put into that was amazing. And I don't know how to get people to attend things like that, but had we had an appearance down at the event downtown where there were hundreds of people there for some other event, and there we were with some kind of a presence, that would have been great. Where they're there for some other thing, and then they get double the value. So I still think that's a good idea.
You know, you mentioned that last month, and I remembered hearing that and thinking, I watch people show up for the movies in the park, and they show up a couple hours early, and they just sit around and do nothing. You know, families throw the ball and the frisbee. Really, they don't do anything because it's daylight. And I don't know, based on the goals of this, but if the goals fit in with that, it might be a good opportunity. You've got 4 different times, everybody's already there. You've got hundreds that are guaranteed there.
The other is the concerts in the park, and you could have concert in the park, day in the park, concert in the park. So you could flow easily into a schedule of concerts in the park, and it's already a activity that has a lot of inertia and a lot of participation. And then you would add to that what Sean and others are talking about is just the marketing, so to speak, of the event itself. But yeah, you could definitely attach it to something that's already successful.
But wouldn't it be difficult for the concerts in the park to attach it to that, in that there's not really park space for throwing a frisbee even?
Well, the concerts in the park are moving, sounds like, but anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
But
Yeah.
the day in the park would be somewhere else. It would still be in the park, quote unquote, but it would be, and we would have all the publicity and all the inertia, but it would be back at Rivercrest, for instance. It'd be back at Rivercrest Park, for instance.
Yeah,
So,
I just think we need almost need another draw, and having a day all by itself.
And Elvis?
A day all by itself.
No, we need an Elvis.
We do need an Elvis. Yes, that would be a draw. It's difficult, I think, as we discovered. And I think we did a lot of good work and had a great event planned. But I think it needs a little bit more to get the people there, to make it worth our time and effort and staff's time. And yeah, maybe at the park. And that's a huge park, Wesley Lynn. We could do an event there, or have at least a booth or something there as part of that. That would be, and we have plenty of room to do some of those other activities that we talked about. That might be something to think about.
to market it or publicize it.
Yeah, I mean, the people are already going to be there, so
Well,
we'll.
the movies in the park are on a Friday night?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Friday night, and they start about dusk, usually 8:30.
So you have
Right.
2 to 3 hours of daylight,
And-
depending on when we do it, when we could do something.
You know, there were hot dogs there, so people might want to show up to the movie and have a hot dog, get their seat. Kids do the bike rodeos and the other things. I mean, I think there's a kind of a natural tie, if you will.
So starting at like at 4:30,
6,
5 o'clock? Oh,
About
yeah,
3 hours
okay.
ahead. Yeah, 2 or 3 hours ahead.
So the kids could bring their bikes down at
Yep.
earlier?
That's
Yeah.
a legitimate idea right there.
And then people are going to be there that didn't come for that park event, but all of a sudden, hey, what do they got going on here?
Right.
I mean, probably most of the people actually going to be like that. And then I think that helps kick it off to something next year. Like, oh, that was a lot of fun. Let's do that again next year.
Mhm. And get the sports group involved, like John said.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool idea.
Just
Sounds good.
Yeah, if I could add my 2 cents,
Yeah.
I really like the idea of attaching it to the movies. The site lends itself to having lots of room, captive audience, plus whoever's going to show up specifically for the Park Day event. You're going to reach more people. I think one of the issues with the one that we did this summer, we had a little bit of, we were kind of down to the wire on whether we were even going to do it. We planned it, and then we kind of had it set, and then actually with some PrAC member changes and some people that were going to be doing certain things, it was sort of like, are we for sure going to do this? So, on our end, as far as the staffing, we could have done a better job of advertising it, but I think we had to kind of pull back the reins and wait just a little bit. And then by the time we got to that point, we'd missed some opportunities doing some signage, some things like that I think we can do a more effective job of helping to get the word out. If we got a solid date and it's confirmed and we're committed, and then we decide how we're going to publicize it, we can do a lot better job. So on our end, for staff, we can do a much better job. Just there were some circumstances we were kind of a few weeks out, and then it kind of became, are we even for sure doing this? And so, but yeah, so the movie idea is, I think from
Yeah,
staff,
that's
I
a
think
great
I think
idea.
that worked really, really well.
So by the time the summer trail news goes out, the movie nights will be established, right?
Mhm.
So we could have our plan, pick one of those
Right.
nights, and right in the same edition of the trail news announce this as well.
Yeah.
You could even, if you wanted to, you can kind of look at our movie schedule and go, I think that one's going to be real popular. We kind of know which ones are going to be the real big crowd ones. And if it's a Disney movie, they're going to be there. But we also pay more for those rights. But anyway, you could know, we'd have our schedule of movies tentatively planned in advance enough that the committee could be looking at those and saying, let's pick one of these. And if you're shooting for biggest exposure, you could try to kind of aim at the one that you think might have the biggest audience.
Well, and if it's timed right, the previous weeks, it could also be announced at. So those people know, hey, next Friday night there's going to be hot dogs here or whatever as well. Come early.
Right.
With a plan.
Great. Cool. Anything else?
Let's put it on our agenda because
It's there.
next year is going to be here, and we're all going to be looking at each other. So let's put it on next
year is
month's
here, isn't
agenda
it?
because Are we meeting in December?
No.
So it'll be next year before we know it, and we'll be going. What are we doing for Parks Day?
Very good point. Okay, so that's something we'll get on next month's agenda. Annual report to the City Commission.
Okay.
I'm overdue.
We're overdue. we're overdue. So part of this is on me probably not having reminded you. I think we haven't done a report to the commission this year. In the past, and I think we've talked about this, but this committee was actually kind of a leader in reporting to the city commission. I think the library board had done that as well, but you were one of the only boards doing that, and it kind of triggered this, wow, that's a really cool thing, and the commission kind of said, we should probably have all of our boards do this. So after you guys had done that a few times,
Thank you.
so anyway, now the point with that is that actually the commission has basically said we would like a report from every one of our committees at least once a year just to keep in touch, and so we haven't done ours this year, and we need to be looking. When I say this year, it doesn't necessarily have to mean by the calendar, but probably either. I'd say if not by the end of this calendar year, we probably want to be looking at one of the first couple months of 2014 to do the annual report. So we'd want to be thinking about that. It's maybe a 5-minute thing, and the chair typically does that, and you just kind of tell them what's going on. So I'm going to be thinking about selecting a time to do that.
Scott, if you could, can you make in your notes for next time get a review of our goals on the agenda, because we'd want to revisit those, make sure they're up to date before, because that's part of what I would want to present to the commission. And I know it's what Brian did and I did the last time, so we'll get that on there. Any other comments on the report? And we'll talk about it more next time.
Looking forward to seeing it.
It's stunning TV. Must-watch TV, is that what they say?
It really has been effective. It's been a very good thing because there have been a number of things that you've brought up and the commission's paid attention, and I think it's been a really positive thing. So.
Good. Other general business? Okay.
I do have one item, Mike, sorry.
Okay.
I had from Denise had mentioned, or in her notes from the last meeting, someone had requested some information about bringing a report about our SDCs, our status. Is that correct? Did you guys talk about that at the meeting? And so I can schedule that at the next month on next month's agenda, but I'd like a little bit more information as to what you were looking for specifically. I don't know who.
I brought that up just kind of as the new member. I remember used to bring it up annually. And so I'd kind of asked the group if they had heard it recently as to how much was in the SDCs, what the kind of the big outlays in the whole budget were this year, or what you're anticipating next year, kind of just a general budget review. I was curious for my own kind of needs when we were looking at some of these priorities, Filbert Run and whatnot. And so,
yeah, I'll bring that back to you next month. It's great. Thanks for the reminder on that.
Good. Thank you. Okay, move on to PrAC member reports. Bob, you want to start?
I'd like to make a few comments about the South End concept plan. And as I was leaving the house tonight, I got a brand new executive summary, brand new, and I haven't had time to read it. So what I have tonight is the plan that I picked up at the October, I think it was the 10th or the 15th, I think it was the 15th meeting. And I brought copies for you. So I'm going to hand this out. And what I did is go through their 55 or 60 page draft plan for the South End part of Oregon City and select out all the references to the parks and trails. So that's what's coming around. But please note that as of tonight, there's a brand-new copy that I was emailed, and I haven't had time to read it. And I know it's changing as time goes on. They keep modifying and changing. And I'll just make a couple of comments about the section on parks. First of all, there's a section on walking and biking that I thought Adam would be interested in. That's in here. But on the parks that are currently being planned up until this afternoon, I think there were like 9 parks, the largest being about 10 acres. I'm sure that has changed because I guess they got some input, I think from Scott's staff, about there's a certain cost with maintenance, and so they tried to scale that back somewhat. There's still one park that's in the plan that's about 10 acres, and 5 or 6 other sections for parks, and I think the total acreage at the most recent count is about 12 to 15 acres if you add all the spaces up. Anyway, I took a quick look at the costs, and of course that's also very rough because that's way out in the future, but I think they had estimated at this point in time right at $1 million toward parks and trails for the South End, in the South End concept plan. So there's a lot to read here if you're interested, and just please note there's an update that's brand new, fresh, that I haven't had a chance to read yet. So at any rate, this will give you an idea of the work that's going on in that particular planning effort. So that's my report.
Great. Thank you. Homework. Sean.
I'll just speak briefly on vandalism in the parks. This summer there's been a lot of vandalism at Wesley Lynn, and so I've kind of taken a little bit of that on with discussions with Scott, and I met with the police chief and lieutenant a few weeks back about it, just kind of as a citizen coming to them rather than city staff all the time coming and talking about assets being damaged. And one thing that they pointed out is there are officers assigned to neighborhood associations, and they encourage citizens to use that as an avenue for reporting, because that officer's kind of got a vested interest in that particular neighborhood. In fact, those officers have volunteered for that position. So rather than, I don't want to say the word average cop or the average officer, but those guys are out. He said that we've got a really bad problem with several kind of drugs right now, and the guys are really focused on other things, and so to help focus them on city property being damaged, Scott unfortunately isn't always the best avenue. He didn't say, the chief didn't say that, but it's definitely clear that having citizens bring it is also a really important way to go. So I thought I would bring that up here because I think it was a lesson learned for me. I used to always email Scott and just say, here's an issue. Well, he didn't have time to deal with all that. So and Joyce is good, what am I trying to say? She's well versed in neighborhood associations and what goes on there. So you could probably speak to that more, because our neighborhood association, I'm unable to attend that meeting every month, so I haven't met with our specific officer yet, but it's good that everybody knows that.
We have the officer with the dog. We have the canine.
That's all. Thank you.
That's, if I could just say, that's a really good point, Sean, about it's somewhat of a recent thing that the police department has assigned an officer to each neighborhood association just to maintain that contact, and that's a really good way, because I think partly what Sean is saying in terms of and vandalism is it's hard to even express how much of a problem it is. It's part of our reality. We've just kind of learned to deal with it. We do our best to keep up with it. If it's we just do the best we can, but our workloads and our staffing levels and all that. But we do pass along anything that we hear from citizens or board members or what have you to the police department. But staff has so many of those that we pass along, it sort of probably becomes a little bit of white noise maybe to PD. And I don't mean any of this in any kind of negative connotation, but what I think Sean is saying is that if it's citizens report it, and especially maybe at a neighborhood meeting where it's the face-to-face, might get some attention a little bit. We need all the help we can get and I know, you know, the police department has a lot of priorities and they can't always deal with everything, but it is a big problem for us. It drains a lot of our resources and a lot of our time, and it creates problems in the parks, you know, or safety issues, and we can't always get to them. So it'd be nice if we could prevent it in the first place. That's not going to happen entirely, but yeah, thanks for that, Sean. That's really an important reminder.
And one more thing, it seems like you never catch the people either, and they have spoken with 3 kids and their parents regarding some of the stuff at Wesley Lynn. So that's a really positive news, is there was a kind of an educational opportunity, if you will.
We have a citizen.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I can share with you that at least 3 and possibly 4.
Tom, could you come up to the microphone? Thanks.
Is it mainly graffiti? No, it was trees.
Oh, really?
Ripping them out of the ground.
Yeah.
Ooh, God, is that I'm O'Brien, Hazelwood Westling Farms. I can share with you that at least 4 of the city's neighborhood associations have been doing that for a period of time, even before the officers volunteered to join our neighborhood associations. We had drug problems at Filbert Run, and the people who lived in the vicinity, immediately when they saw something going down, they called the police. The police were extremely responsive. They got there. You know, they missed them sometimes, but they were right on it. Same situation has occurred at Rivercrest. They had some drug problems there. The city put, because of the overlap in the department now, put extra people in non-marked cars, cleaned it up. There were 2 incidents that I'm aware of down in Kanema neighborhood. Police worked very closely with the neighborhood association and the people in the community to take care of what was going on in the parks down there. So we have tried to facilitate, rather than pestering staff, which can't even respond in time. You know, the police are on a radio. They can get there within minutes. They're in the vicinity. And I would encourage all of you to talk to your individual neighborhoods. Get them on the bandwagon, because we've got the finest police department you can imagine. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
I'll echo what the Oregon City Police, having working with multiple police agencies in my career across multiple jurisdictions. Oregon City, by far, is the best to work with. So I know that's not part of what I had to say, but since we're all saying it, I'm going to echo that, just because I got to respond with them. I work with them. I had worked with them on a daily basis, and you guys should be very lucky to have what you have. Other areas, you might be waiting a long time for a police officer to show up, so not here in the city. So other than that, I don't have nothing to report.
Okay. Other Brian?
I love the police, too. Oregon City.
My license is.
Let the record show.
Actually, I talked to an officer last night, so, yeah, on an issue that I won't be getting into, but have you been to the pool since it's reopened? No. Check it out. It's awesome. So they put in a lot of new tile in the bathrooms, and all the way around the pool itself. They took out the old little tiles, my favorite color, you know, the aquamarine color. Those are gone, but it's great. So check it out.
Good. Thank you. Nothing from me?
Yeah, we love our police. Unfortunately, the vandalism at the cemetery that we're aware of, you know, that there is a, if anybody turns in information regarding that, I guess there is some kind of a reward for information on that, so you can read more about that, I know, on the city website. In the October 5th event, the Willamette Falls Legacy, where they were having tours and all the stuff going down on Main Street, and then out at the museum with the Chamber of Commerce Business Fair. And if you weren't down there between 1 and 2, you didn't hear me singing on stage with my group. But there's a lot of wonderful things going on in this city, and as being in the schools, as I try to tell the kids all the time when I ask, you know, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, there's nothing to do in this town. And my response is always to send them back to the city's website or tell them, you know, these are some of the things going on in your town. Did you know that? And they're always surprised. So, you know, it's, again, getting the word out there. Why are we out there? You know, why are we in the parks? So that's all my report.
Good. Thank you. Lisa?
I don't have a report.
Okay.
I was
Huh.
just going to comment on the cemetery. I saw what happened up there, and it's a shame that it happens. It happens. I live out in Redland, and our cemetery at time gets vandalized too like that, and there's no call for it. It's disturbing, actually, and I hope they get caught. It's crazy.
Scott, is there some sort of security review that's gone on as a result of this? I know, Wesley Lynn has cameras. Are there any cameras out at the cemetery, or is that something that's not discussed during a meeting? But
It's okay.
I thought I'd just throw that out there.
Yeah, we don't have cameras. It's such a big area that, I mean, the whole thing, it'd be hard to figure out where to put them exactly. But we do have, unlike a lot of our parks and areas, we have a gate that locks at night. But there are still, if you want to do bad things, you're going to figure out a way to do them, and people still figure out ways to get in there, and can't keep everybody out. And it's a real shame about this part. I mean, first of all, just that that it's so personal, because it's people's families and so forth, and then in particular when it is in our historic section where it's older headstones, which is the case in this situation where there's a lot of those affected. It's basically like stomping all over our history, and you can't replace a 130-year-old headstone. I mean, we can repair it and replace it, but it's not the same. It's there's a lot of history in something like that, so that's what's a real shame about this one. But yeah, we have some security measures. I've been reading in a number of our regional cemeteries lately of the amount of vandalism that's been going on. I just read another one today in another city. There was another one last week in a different, I think one of the metro cemeteries or something, and I don't know what's going on, but it seems to be a lot of it. We got the best thing that helps is just people's awareness. I mean, as far as security stuff goes, that people being aware, and if you see anything, report it. But and Joyce mentioned that we do have, in our cemetery, we do have a reward. It's a $500 reward for anybody that gives us information that leads to an arrest. And we've used that before, and it has led to an arrest before. So if somebody out there watching knows who did it, let us know.
Do we have an on-site manager like we have in some of the parks?
Not overnight. No.
I don't know what that costs to have those, but we have one. We have several, I know, in our parks.
Yeah, we have the park host in some of our
Shapeland
parks.
has one, I know. And
Seems like it's so hard at the cemeteries. It seems like it goes in, from what I've seen with our Pioneer Cemetery that we have, it goes in spurts. It will be this year, and then it will die down, and nothing will happen, and then all of a sudden, here it goes again. It's just so random. It's just, so hard to predict when it's going to happen. And
That's why I brought up the idea of cameras. There's so many ways you can put some digital media off in a few key places that people generally will always go by, have no idea it's there, and it's on a hard drive down the road. And costs on that stuff is not too bad these days, so something to consider.
Yeah, that's definitely something we can think about. We have started looking at cameras in some of our park areas that experience high vandalism. So the technology is getting less expensive, easier to put out remotely in sites, and so yeah, it's a consideration for sure.
Okay. Move on to staff reports.
The Clackamas sculpture, the new sculpture at Clackamas that you've heard us talk about a bunch, and also you were involved in kind of approving the original design, and our new entry sign there at Clackamas were dedicated.
It was October 5th.
Yeah, it was the same date as the.
So that's a correction
Thank
on
you.
there.
Yeah, I don't know why I looked at that date, and I think I put a 2 in front of the 5. It was actually supposed to be 10/5/13. So yeah, we had a dedication of that at the Willamette Falls Festival on Saturday, and we had a really good turnout for that. A lot of folks that were involved with that, and it was just a really, really neat thing. Plus, the weather was fantastic, and so again, if you haven't had a chance to go by there since that's all been done, please please do. You'd be surprised at how good that turned out, I think. We already talked about the Waterboard Park. I mentioned that the commission approved that on October 2nd. I believe at your last meeting, somebody asked for an update on the Lauderette Park project that we had the student for Portland State, Michelle. Got some info here. Hold on. So Michelle Rizzo was her name, and you recall that she came back in front of PRAC a while back and proposed to do some nice things to spruce up the park a little bit there. And she sent us a note a couple of weeks ago and just basically said she was letting us know that she's not abandoned the project. If you've been by there, it is kind of semi-completed. And some of the artwork and mural stuff is up, and you can see what they're doing. She mentioned that the mural is moving slow due to some weather issues. I think that was back in maybe September when we had some rain and stuff going on. She'll be dropping in to work on more of the background as time allows. The kids' part of the mural will not be coordinated until after the winter, most likely. She indicates there was some coordination with, I think it was one of the programs out of Eastham.
That's the summer camp.
Yeah, thanks. And she's also still trying to work with Home Depot to get the wall ball wall rebuilt, and is talking to the American Tennis Association about possibly refinishing the tennis court. So anyway, it looks like she just contacted us, sent us an email, and just indicated those updates, and I wanted to pass that along to you, that that's still in the works and she's still working on it. But part of the project was already completed, and so it's somewhat improved, but she hasn't forgotten about it. So let's see. The update on the Glen Oak and Filbert Run Parks master planning processes. I know we keep saying we're about to do the process. We're getting closer and closer, but we actually are going to be advertising for the request for proposals for our design consultants. The advertising will be posted next week, so that means we open the process. It kept getting bumped back just because of other priorities and issues, and we had an extremely busy summer, so we were just juggling a lot of things. But actually, this is a really good time now to start the process, because there are a lot of designers and consultants that are looking for work now that the summer project season is over. So I would think that we'll get a lot of good responses to our advertisement. So again, we are going to advertise both of these parks as one bid to get some economies of scale. They'll be treated as two separate parks. Each will have its own design process and identity, but we're basically going to hire one designer or one design team to do both projects for us. So once the project is open, it'll be open for a few weeks. We'll get proposals back. We'll see how that looks. Sometimes you have to extend the period a little bit longer if you don't get as much of a response as you liked, or sometimes we get inundated in a short amount of time, so we'll kind of feel that out. We had talked previously, it's been a little while since we talked about this, that we should have at least one PRAC member help us out on the selection committee. I think I've got that in my notes. Does anybody remember which one of you volunteered to do that or was interested? Okay. And you were the alternate, right? Okay, so we'll talk about that a little bit when we get a bit closer. And then another thing that's come up is the idea that maybe a representative from each of the two affected neighborhood associations might want to sit on the selection committee. Actually, Tom O'Brien, I don't know if that's partly why you're here tonight or not, Tom, but Tom had requested to me a while back that if he or someone from the neighborhood that Filbert Run Park is in could be on the selection committee. And I think that's a great idea, and I think we should also invite someone from the neighborhood association that Glen Oak Park is in. I know, Mike, you're in that neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Do you go to your association meetings somewhat regularly?
When I can, somewhat.
Wondering if
irregularly, but yeah.
Wondering if, as a point of contact, you might know who to ask, or pass it along to whoever the chair is and say, maybe at the next meeting they could talk about it and ask if somebody would, if that neighborhood association would like to select somebody to be on this, the selection committee for the consultant. So what I'm talking about is we'll go through a process of basically grading, scoring, possibly interviewing the consultants to find the right person or firm to do the work for us. So if you want to do that.
Yep, I will.
Tom, I don't know if you're still interested in that, or if you've had any further conversations with your neighborhood about that, or.
I've talked with the co-chair and the people who have been most involved in cleaning up Gilbert Run, and they were
Still interested. Okay.
They thought we should
Great.
have a representative.
Okay, so we'll be in contact pretty shortly then about that. Great. So that's kind of where we're at, and then the process will take place basically over the winter, and we'll have hopefully a couple of park master plans by this spring or so, give or take, and then we can start. Kind of goes back to what Sean was talking about, our SDCs earlier. Start looking at where the projects fall within our priorities. Looking at our grant opportunities. We've been pretty successful with our parks grants, and start kind of thinking about that. So, unless you have any questions about that, the Ermitinger House project, I gave you a written update. I won't talk about it. I'll just let you read that at your own time, and if you have any questions, you can let me know. That's a report that I just shared with our city commission. So that's been shared with the commission, but I wanted to pass that along to you as well. And let's see, that's really about it. And I guess kind of jumping into the next scheduled meeting date. I think, again, Sean noted that the next meeting was going to be on Thanksgiving. I don't know if any of you wanted to come down here and sit here with me on Thanksgiving, but I hope not. So what I was looking at is the week before or the week after is usually what we've done when that's hit on Thanksgiving week. So we'd be looking, if the week before would be the 21st, and the week after would be December 5. And then remember, we don't meet in December, so if you pushed it out into the early part of December, that'd kind of almost give you the we're not going to meet there for 2 months or whatever, and so anyway,
like that idea.
I'll let you select whatever works best for the committee.
Does that work with the city calendar in this room?
I believe so. Yeah, I don't think we've got any problems. If we do, we would have a backup meeting spot of some type.
Yeah. I like December 5.
Yeah.
December 5th?
Yeah, definitely.
Great.
Good.
I'll be out of town that day.
Okay. So December 5th. Great.
And you'll have to be excused, huh?
Oh, again.
Do you have a good excuse?
Yes. I'm going to
Your mom's going to write you an excuse?
Yes. Had a note.
You can write your own now, though.
Okay, so
Can't
next
you
meeting
Skype
will
us,
be
Jim?
December 5th. And remember that hopefully our November meeting may have interviews prior to, no, wait a minute, that would be December 5th, and that would be that night.
That's the next meeting.
Duh. Okay, so we may start at 6 that night for interviews.
Correct.
Hopefully. Keep our fingers crossed. Anything else? All right.
I'd like to congratulate Lisa on her appointment to the principalship of the McLaughlin Elementary School.
Wow.
Wow.
Congratulations. I hadn't heard that.
That's great.
Sean left me. Now he's over at Gaffney.
My daughter went there, and we were talking about wanting some really good, consistent. The principals have always come and gone there to other things, and they need somebody that's going to be there for a while. Congratulations! I hadn't heard that.
That's great.
It's great.
Any transfers? I could move her back.
Yeah,
I've got one more coming up.
Well, that's a heck of an opportunity and a heck of a challenge. It's like herding cats.
No. They're cute cats.
Yeah, they are. Yes, they are. My daughter is a 7th grade teacher, and they are cute. Anyway, okay, we'll adjourn the meeting at 8:40. Thank you all.